Hi, I'm Ashley Swartz, founder of Furious Minds. I'm here at the Fraud Summit for Beat in New York. It's June 5th. And I thought that I would do my editorial segment here as well because I've been doing a bunch of research and prep work for the panels that I'm moderating about fraud, non-human traffic, viewability, et cetera. And I'm kind of intellectually stimulated and thought I would talk about it. So this all sort of started with a Wall Street Journal article that came out a few weeks ago that was quite alarmist. Some of the numbers it dropped and some of the main players that are actually going to participate in the event today were sort of mentioned. And the reality is the numbers are staggering, right? So let's put that Wall Street Journal article aside and just look at some other data and statistics, right? So the Atlantic had a recent article that said that 61.5% of web traffic is non-human, right? 61.5%. That's more than half of web traffic. So this issue is much bigger than just video. This is display. This is just sort of endemic advertising overall, digital advertising. And Adweek estimates that as a result of this non-human traffic, issues of viewability below the fold, which is something the 3MS Make Media Make Sense committee has been working on, all of it is costing the industry about $6 billion annually. That is staggering considering the value of online video is about $5.7 billion, right? So, where are we kind of like, and let's talk about what fraud is, right? Because it's quite a generic phrase. It addresses, when we say fraud, we mean viewability. It's quite a comprehensive statement, right? It's viewability. So is it below the fold, above the fold? The advisory standard, I believe, by the IAB right now is 2 seconds that the video has been viewed and 50% of the pixels are in screen and viewable. It includes sort of this issue of iframes, right? And sort of tracking and everything, non-human traffic, bot traffic. When we use the term fraud, it's sort of collective, right? And they're kind of all interrelated in many ways. It does, however, seem to be improving, so I don't want to sort of just be, negative Nelly today. If we look at Integral Ad Science, which is one of the well-respected partners in the industry that helps a lot of brands and advertisers sort of check the checker, if you will, they showed that their numbers show in research that from Q4 2012 to 2013, Q4 2013, we saw that suspicious activity overall fell by 7 points, right? So it dropped from 30% of all activity in ads placed to 13%. So that's a fairly decent improvement. It's almost a third, right? We're seeing that the biggest culprits, though, in regards to suspicious activity or the lack of delivery of ads in view are exchanges and networks, which is sort of not a surprise, right? The expectation is that direct sales are obviously delivering the best with 66% of the ads they deliver in view, right? But that's also a 5% improvement year over year as well. Ad networks estimate they're performing at about 51%, and exchanges are coming in at the bottom at 47% being in view. There are a couple big questions here, right? Obviously, what do we do as an industry? Advertisers are sort of being forced to step up and take responsibility to police. And by virtue of taking responsibility, even though they're looking at a cost of doing business and it's putting more burden on agencies sort of in addition to just the media buying and planning, the reality is whose cost is it to bear, right? So check the checker. Is it beholden, to whom should the responsibility be given to actually make sure that something that is sold and then procured, is it the buyer or the seller that should take responsibility, or should it be shared across the ecosystem because it is such an endemic problem? And if you listen to some of the industry leaders, a lot of the problems specifically around the non-human traffic or the bot stuff is coming from enterprises that exist outside of the US and sort of outside of the confines of what we define as legally sort of upstanding and respectable behavior in digital advertising and marketing, right? So that's the first big question. Who bears the cost, and how do we sort of figure that out? Is it shared? Is it the publisher? What does it mean for CPMs? Will guaranteed in-view videos actually increase, for example, over time, and sort of that bottom feeder inventory that we don't know, where there's a lot of waste, the eCPMs will just drop so that the inefficiency of it doesn't really matter because your effective total spend remains the same? That's to be determined. What does this mean for programmatic, right? I don't think this is a silly question to ask. I posed it to a few folks and they just sort of looked at me. I do think that as dollars are shifting to exchanges, especially brands that are buying tonnage, right, and not necessarily buying sort of premium, super premium, if we talk about video in particular, inventory, the reality is that exchanges and RTB and all that stuff, I do think there's a huge implication there. If the exchanges in particular are the ones that are performing the least sort of in regards to the percentage of inventory that's in view, we could see implications in regards to how dollars are shifting from direct buying and planning to automated and programmatic and exchange platforms, specifically for video. And if publishers are able to obtain a higher CPM for their premium inventory, because we still are at a place of a lack of liquidity in the marketplace for premium video, then I'm not sure that that's not going to slow the growth and acceleration of programmatic overall. Just a thought. So the last one is, let's just call out and say hello to the big girl in the room. We have built an industry with great hubris. Our measure of success and performance is determined based on metrics we have defined as an industry. That's been a pretty amazing, cushy place to be, specifically in digital, for the last like 10 years, right? And the reality is that I think we're finally hitting a tipping point where that ain't gonna remain the same anymore, right? As a result of the fact that CPM and CPC and the things that we define as measures of media performance today, specifically for digital, are what are the, if perhaps you take that logic, maybe they are the reason that we're having such a hard time with viewability because of how we define digital marketing performance. The reality is that we need to start moving more and more towards business measures of success. Brands are investing heavily in attribution and media mix modeling. They're getting more real-time data. They're going to shift their dollars by channel and by above the line, below the line as a result. And the reality is that maybe we as an industry start to need to tool and prepare and actually organize our workflow around the ability to deliver digital advertising vis-a-vis the metrics of success and the KPIs that are driven by business KPIs for our brands and advertisers. That's going to be a whole new world for us, and I'm excited actually about it because I think that the more that we make the conversation within our industry about business and less about media and CPCs and CPMs and things like that, I think we'll have a much more meaningful dialogue and we'll deliver a lot more economic value and a lot more growth for us overall. I welcome your comments. Thanks.